I'm Chuck Tuning. I'm the creative director of Donghia. I come out of an interior design background, and when I was first approached by Donghia to consider being the creative director, I realized that I would have to give up my own design practice and go into a different sector of the design industry. But the actual attraction was Angelo himself. So through my whole career, I had actually taken inspiration from Angelo's projects. And that to me was the message I needed to be the steward of Angelo Donghia's philosophy and his design, but also be able to be the one to take it and continue it into the future and make sure that it stayed alive. Angelo Donghia was actually second generation Italian. His parents moved to the US, to Pennsylvania. His father was a tailor in a small town. He learned the trade of fine tailoring of men's suits, which later influenced him greatly in his design approach. He very much was in love with classic American designs, especially the grand Vanderbilt families and the Carnegies and these huge houses that they built around the US. When he graduated from Parsons, he went to work for Yale Burge in New York City. And Yale Burge was known for doing very traditional interiors, but also doing reproduction furniture. Angelo grew into the business and later was actually made a partner of the business. In the mid-1960s, he actually went on to inherit the business and changed it to Donghia Associates. And as his personality grew in the design field, he was introduced to a lot of celebrities in New York at the time. And at the time, they became clients of his. So people such as Liza Minnelli and Barbara Walters, Mary Tyler Moore, Donald Trump, Ralph Lauren, Woody Allen, among many, many others. And Angelo became this sort of icon of design. He applied his father's tailoring to his furniture that he designed. So he created these very voluptuous, very sensual pieces of furniture. Angelo's design philosophy was very much about proportion and scale. He loved to go into an interior in a room and interject these large pieces of furniture. He loved upholstery. He felt like it was the anchor to a room. And then he would accessorize the room with antiques, modern pieces, so it had a very collected look. He loved to silver and gold leaf the ceilings because he said it gave the room a luminosity that could not be achieved otherwise. He believed that no matter how luxurious an interior might be, it should always be inviting and comfortable. Angelo was very much influenced by the 1920s, 30s, and 40s French design. His favorite designer was Jean-Michel Franck, and he drew a lot of inspiration from this period of design and the French designers, because they would take very traditional and classical forms of furniture and then they would edit them down and strip them down to their purest form. Today we're going to look at the new Spring 2013 collection for Donghia. So what I want to show you here is the final edited presentation board of the items that will be launched for spring, and it includes pieces from our archives. I'll show you many of the finishes, the inspiration, and really the romance of what's behind the collections. Part of the new furniture launch is a piece that we actually found from an antique dealer in Los Angeles, and we discovered this chair, and the provenance of the chairs, it was designed by Angelo for a client in LA, and it was a piece that he custom designed. You see that the actual wings of the chair are very sculptural, and they actually wrap around into the back of the chair, so you have this beautiful silhouette and lines of the chair itself. So it's very much about the form. The feature of the collection is a new dining table. It is designed to seat 8 people, and as you see, the base is quite architectural. So it's this cage within a cage, and it'll be in polished stainless steel. And the inspiration of this actually came from antique Chinese bowls, where you actually see the eggshell that's embedded into the lacquering on the bowl. We have a new coffee table called the Anchor. You see it's a polished stainless steel base. It's very geometric and very sculptural. This acts as a leg of the table, and you can actually specify how many bases you want. Then you specify the size of the glass. And then the glass actually slides into these sleeves that you see here. We have a new lighting collection coming out for 2013, and part of that collection is a new sconce, a wall sconce, which you see the mock-up over here on the board. This is the scale of the sconce, and it's designed as a diamond, and you can group the sconces together, so you can actually do it in multiples. Another piece in the new lighting collection looks like a globe, and the beauty of the globe itself is that it's actually ovoid in shape, and then the top of the glass has been sliced off, and it's been sliced off at a slight angle, and then the actual edge of this is polished. And there'll be two colors. One is in the cognac, and then the other color is actually it's in a smoked gray glass. This glass is actually being blown and made for us in Brooklyn. Another sconce that we're doing is reminiscent of a leaf, and then it's embedded with colored glass rods. The fitting for the glass that will actually hold it almost appears as a twig or a branch that's holding the leaf up. Another collection of lighting that we're doing, you see a sketch drawing here, is called the draped table lamp. And the light source of the lamp itself will actually illuminate the column of the draped glass. So you'll get a glow that actually happens in the column of the lamp. Also part of the collection is a new collection of mirrors. And one taken specifically from the archives is called the Angelo mirror. And we call it the Angelo mirror because Angelo designed this mirror for himself for his house on 71st Street in New York. And it's actually framed in a fluted glass that's laid on top of the mirror. Another mirror that will be in the collection, which was inspired by a 19th century Italian picture frame, miniature picture frame. So we took this, and that was the source of inspiration. We're actually doing it also in a white and a yellow gold leaf. This is called the cusp mirror, and you see it's a octagonal shape and with slight curves to the sides of the mirror. The frame is actually in a bronze, so the exterior of the frame is polished, the inside is patinaed. And then the actual plate mirror floats on the inside, so it floats away from the edges. Here we are at the Rubelli Mill. We're only a couple of miles from Lake Como in this beautiful little town called Cucciago. The Rubelli Mill is this sort of masterpiece of weaving, and we derive so much inspiration when we're designing and we're putting together collections and we're creating these interior spaces. And a lot of it starts with the fabrics themselves. When I first came here, I was fascinated by the machines. The machines were mesmerizing. Today, even when I walk through the mill, I'm totally amazed at the process of how textiles are woven. And when I see the process and I see how complicated and technical and the many, many layers that it takes to produce a finished product, I then understand the value that goes into those fabrics. And I understand that textiles are truly works of art. And that's why they become so special. The most wonderful element and attribute of Rubelli is that it's a family-owned business. And it goes back 5 generations. And that brings into it this human quality and character.
Rubelli is a 5th generation company. It was actually existing in Venice since 300 years ago. And about 125 years ago, my great-great-grandfather, Lorenzo Rubelli, acquired it. He had acquired a company that had 70 handlooms weaving in Venice. Well, we very proudly have still 4 of those original handlooms dating the 18th century and still working and active now in Como, which is the silk district of Italy. These looms represent our tradition. But Rubelli is a blend. I like to see Rubelli as a blend of tradition and innovation. As a textile is a very basic structure, actually, is composed of a warp and a weft that cross each other. I see the warp, which is long and never-ending, it's our tradition, and the weft, which goes very fast, 500 times per minute in the modern looms, back and forth, it's our innovation. Every year, new ideas, every year, new. And in this mill, we represent our soul perfectly by having the original hand looms and the most modern weaving technology. Amazingly, The technique that is used today in the most modern loom is the same, but the punch card has been replaced by files and electronics, and the technology has completely changed, the speed has completely changed, but the fundamentals of weaving have remained the same over the centuries. We will show you how these fabrics are woven. We still keep this. It is not an important part of our business, as you can imagine, because one worker on one of these looms can only produce half a yard of fabric every day, and with 4 looms we wouldn't go very far. But it is very important for us to keep it alive because it is our passion. I think we must have some silk in our blood, which we can't cope without it. Lorita, who's a young, passionate weaver, is actually working on these velvets today in the exact same way that they were working in Venice 200 years ago. The brain of the loom is that metal jacquard machine that is reading these punch cards and creating a pattern. The jacquard machine is connected through the harness into the warp. Each warp yarn goes through one of these parts of the harness, and the holes on the punch card determine which parts of the creel of the harness has to move up and which has to stay down. Everything in this loom is manual, is powered by the muscles of Lorita. Even the repeat, the size of the pattern, is given by her strength. We could not send Lorita home today and have another worker continue weaving this pattern because the repeat would change. This setup of the loom and this pattern is unique to Lorita. The way the punch cards were made, each square represents a specific position on this grid, and depending where you have to show the background, the warp, or the foreground, the weft, you leave plain or you punch a hole. Basically, using this very rudimental hammer and these pins, you can just put one here and punch. So now we're transitioning from our tradition to the innovation, which is the big challenge of every morning when we wake up. We buy the most modern technology in order to reproduce the most antique techniques.
So in Milan, you will actually see a fabric called Sweet Thing that's woven for Donghia at Rubelli. We together developed this fabric. It's a beautiful fabric that actually has a metallic yarn woven through it. So it has just this slight sparkle and glitter that happens within what looks like a very neutral texture. At the Milan Furniture Fair, we actually overlaid the new Rubelli sheer that's in this beautiful pewter metallic on top of a canary yellow silk Antoinette that's in the Donghia collection. There's this wonderful velvet that Rubelli developed 2 years ago called Spritz. And what's fabulous about this velvet, it's actually woven and then it's printed in an inkjet process. So it's overprinted. So what happens is as the pile moves and separates and smiles, you get this iridescent quality. So it almost has the feel and look of a silk velvet that's hand woven. Another new fabric in the Rubelli collection, it's called Sing. It was inspired by Ottoman tile patterns from Istanbul. And what's really unique and beautiful about it is the shadowing that you see around this geometric pattern. Another fabulous new fabric from the Rubelli Spring collection is called Pavone. And Pavone is a woven fabric that is inspired by marbleized paper. And here you see the pattern with these beautiful jewel tones. And here you get the lustrous fiber against the dry fiber. So in doing that, you create this dimensionality within the textile itself. Here's this beautiful traditional chinoiserie. And the weave on this is exquisite with this satin ground and this fabulous persimmon color, I call it. And then it's woven with both gold and silver metallic yarns. The pattern of modern art came from the Rubelli archives, and it's a 1928 pattern by the artist Canaluti, who commissioned Rubelli to produce this design. And the original design was done on Rubelli's hand looms, so the wooden hand looms. And here's an original piece of the hand loomed silk velvet. And here you'll see the final creations and results of what you saw earlier in the Donghia Design Studio back in New York. What we've created here is really a theme about chiaroscuro, which is an Italian term for light and dark. On the bow sofa, you'll find the fabric that we looked at in the Rubelli mill. This is called Sweet Thing. Next to the sofa is the new trammel console, made from a faux ebony. So it is a reconstituted wood. The edge of the table is inlaid with aluminum nails. And then the actual structure of the table is a polished nickel arc. And the cusp mirror you saw again back in the design studio, we had done a foam core mock-up of this. And here you see it in the finished state with the polished brass patinaed on the inside, and then the plate of mirror is cut and floats inside the frame. Over here we have the new Daphne mirror. And we wanted to create this very organic play on a Baroque mirror. And here you see it in a gesso finish, so it's plaster laid up on carved wood, and then it's polished by hand with stones. And here it is in 12 karat gold leaf that's hand gilded on the frame, and then it's hand antiqued. Below it is the new Rex chair, and this chair is actually unique because it stacks. Here is in a lacquered finish, so it gives it a more contemporary look than the wood. Again, in the design studio, you saw models of this table where it was actually made from folding paper together in origami. Over here you see the origami in the polished brass finish. This is sort of the highlight of the show. We've created this dramatic, intimate room here. And I showed you back in the Rubelli mill where we used the new Rubelli fishnet sheer in the metallic, and we laid it over the silk satin Antoinette from Donghia in the canary yellow. So you get this very dramatic theatrical effect in the space. Centered in the space is the new coterie table, and the eggshell is then lacquered with 15 coats of lacquer. The chair here was designed by Angelo in the late 1970s. It's called the cantilever side chair. We have the new bijou wall sconce, and actually you're seeing a grouping of 4 of the wall sconces clustered together. And in the Donghia Design Studio, when we were there earlier, you saw a prototype of that had been made up. Well, here you're seeing the actual finished product. So here you've seen the talents of both Donghia and Rubelli come together in the creative process. We've taken you on this journey from the design in the studio. We've carried you through the production and showed you how many of these things are actually produced and how they come to life. And here you see it finally staged together in the final presentation here in Milan at the Furniture Fair.